Hi, welcome to another interruption. I just got through with a very serious situation in my life that I wasn't looking for, but it came up on me, and just want to talk about it just a very little bit. It's like every prayer that I sent up, God said no to. First thing I said was, God, let me just get in to see my supposed regular doctor. That's all. I had a pain in my shoulder, no big deal. But when I called, tried to get an appointment, they said, no, you have to go to the emergency room. So God said, no. So I said, okay, let the emergency room be quick so I can get in, get some lunch, get back to work. God said, no. I said, okay, well, let it not be my heart. I was starting to get a little nervous at that point when they started looking for some serious stuff, and EKG came back, and the doctor said, oh, it looks great. It's definitely not your heart. Blood work came back. God said no, it was my heart. So, okay. Then I said, well, let them schedule an appointment to look at everything so I can get on with life. God said no. I had to go to the hospital in Lexington by an ambulance. So I said, if I have to go to the hospital, this is the hospital that I prefer to go to. God said no. He had other ideas about that as well. So anyway, I said, okay, well, let it be simple. Let them find what it is, get it fixed quickly, just a simple stent or something like that, maybe some medication. God said no. So I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed all the way through this, and God keeps saying no, 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 no. So I thought, well, okay, let me go home instead of just laying in the hospital when they decided they had to do surgery, because it was going to be about 3 days before they could do that. So let me go home. That way I can kind of regroup a little bit. God said no. I had to lay there 3 more days to wait for the surgery. It's like, okay, God, I have to have the surgery. We've come this far. Everything else has been going good for the situation I was in. But how about I have the surgery first thing in the morning? Go ahead, get it out of the way so I don't have to lay there and think about this. God said no. It was after 3 in the afternoon before they took me back and got me started. I was like, wow. But the truth is, every no that God said in my prayers was God saying to me, I know what is best. And that leads us to our scripture reading, which is Isaiah 55:9. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways. And that was so right with everything that I went through. It turned out to be, for the seriousness of the situation, God knew what was best all the way. Kept me from having anything serious that could have caused a lot of damage or a lot of hurt. But he took me through it and sent some of the best people in the world. Anyway, the peace that passes all understanding was there. It was with me and Laura as we went through this. I got to thinking, scripture, where does God say no? And first thing that popped up was David, King David. He fasted and prayed for several days. Eventually, God said no. He would not heal the baby that belonged to him in Bathsheba. So David responded in such a good way. It's like a model for all of us. He accepted what God had done. He went into the house of the Lord and worshipped. He wanted a different outcome and didn't get it. In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul, he was plagued by what he called a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment. That's in 2 Corinthians 12:7. Paul pleaded with God on 3 separate occasions to take this thorn from him. God said no. So Paul learned to live for the glory of God through the difficulty. His response to God's no was to glorify him in his weakness instead of giving up in frustration or deciding God just don't care. What we learn from the biblical examples is that God never stops being God. He is sovereign. Sovereign. What a word. I mean, it's even spelled funny, isn't it? But if you were to look up the word sovereign in the dictionary, you would find words like superior, greatest, supreme in power and authority. The scriptures tell us, Revelation 21:6, God is above all things and before all things. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He is immortal. He is present everywhere so that everyone can know him. It also says in the book of Psalm 103:19, God is in control of all things and rules over all things. He has power and authority over nature, earthly kings, angels, and demons. Even Satan himself has to ask God's permission before he can act. The sovereignty of God. And as a Christian, we have to believe that. There are many times when God can say yes to our requests because they fit the plan that he's working out. He said yes to Moses. Moses requested to see his glory. He said yes to Solomon's request for wisdom. And Jesus, of course, many times people came and asked for healing. He said yes to them. Lots and lots of stories of how Christ healed many, many people. But our faith-filled requests do not supersede God's sovereign rule. If he was bound by our prayers, he would cease to be God, wouldn't he? Nowhere in Scripture do we see such a precedent. God will often say no to things that we yearn to see happen. And those with an immature faith sometimes use this as an excuse to abandon God altogether. Think about that for a second. Have we ever been upset because God didn't answer a prayer? Simple things sometimes, God didn't save my marriage. God didn't give me the job I needed. God didn't let me off work for this particular day. I prayed hard about this. There's so many little things that we ask God for and he says no to, but it's because he knows what's best. If our view is that God is obligated to grant our requests, like a genie grants wishes, then we will be confused when God does not perform for us. The truth is, we choose whether to allow a no from God to shatter our faith or not. Don't we? Don't let a no from God shatter your faith. If you're weak right now, get on your knees, pray, read the scriptures, get your faith strong, get it built up again. Because the end is coming and Satan is very alive and well right now. So think about that. Until next time.